Welcome back, everybody, to Thanks for Your Concern. You're here with Berenice.
And I'm Ella. Hello, everybody. We are so excited to have you today. Berenice, you're looking gorgeous, per usual. How
Yeah,
are you feeling?
thanks. This is the look. This is the no makeup, getting through the day look. I'm feeling good. I've had like a weird sort of pain where I'm like, is it arthritis? I don't know. You know what I mean? It could be stress. It could be lots of things. So I think maybe it's time to get it to the doctor for 2024. It might just be like one of those days. Um, and then I'm also going to a dinner for. I actually think this is funny because every year our university calls us, heckling us, and asking for money. All right, asking for
All the
donations.
time.
And I every year I answer the phone. I go, this Washington State University. I'm like, stop calling me. I am not giving you any money, okay?
Literally, I'm still paying you guys. Like, I have student loans. Like, I still pay fucking for no.
Yeah. So I always get mad because I was like, you gave me trauma. If you start paying my bills to go to the psychiatrist for this, then maybe I'll start donating money. Anyway, so yeah, not obviously the best relationship with my university, but in my major, they did like a trip every year where like they take students to New York and they try to meet with people that live in New York. They found my email finally, and
They tracked you down.
yeah. And I said, okay, maybe I won't give a financial donation, but like I can go to dinner and like sit and talk to some people, and that can be my contribution to the youth of America. So I'm doing that.
Are you gonna sit there with you're like, you guys prepare yourselves. Buckle up.
Well, I'm gonna try to be real, but also, gentle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I will say, we'll talk about this later in the episode, but you have like the best advice for them if they're looking to move to New York post college.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm loving giving back to the youth. Love that for you.
Thank you. How are you? What are you up to?
Oh my gosh, y'all. What a doozy of a day, eh? So the Oscars were last night when we record this. I watched every single Oscar nominated film. Every single.
You were invested.
I watched 33 movies in the past 10 days. And you're like, how the fuck's that possible? That's like 3 movies a day. Yeah, it is, okay? Morning, afternoon too, okay? I was powering through these. And I went to one movie like in a theater a day. So I went to a movie theater every single day for the past like 2 weeks. It's been crazy.
Wow.
Something that I would recommend for you and for other people listening that only got one nomination, but it's on Netflix. It's called El Conde, and it's a vampire movie. It was nominated for Best Cinematography. It's a Chilean film, but it's on Netflix for free, and it's a vampire movie. It's really cool. It's like a black and white old school vampire movie, and I actually really liked it because it's like the most probable if vampires were real. I think sometimes the vampires are a little too nicey, like, I'm a killer. But this vampire was like, no, I like being evil. So I really enjoyed it.
Okay.
So
I
would highly
that.
recommend that one. That was like the last one I watched on this list. And I was like, oh, I should tell people about that one. But yeah, my emotions have been on like a woo, because these movies are intense.
You did say that. I believe you.
They've even gotten more intense, bro. So now that I literally am only gonna watch like happy movies for like a couple of weeks, but I feel like my whole life has changed from this experience. I have 0 complaints, okay? 0. Because every time I think about maybe, oh my god, this bus is late, I'm like, well, at least I'm not strapped in the Andes Mountains for fucking 70 days, okay? Based on a true story. I wouldn't. Yeah. That one was too sad. I honestly wouldn't recommend that one. But yeah, so I'm feeling.
Well,
really
that one's
great.
like a known story. That one.
I haven't heard it.
They actually. Well, okay. Were you ever watch? I think it wasn't a Discovery Channel. I'm not sure, but it was like I Shouldn't Be Alive.
No, I
It's
haven't seen that.
oh, it was a TV show I watched like as a kid. Probably had no business watching that because
Yeah.
it kind of like freaked me out. It was all like natural disaster related, and that one was like on there, and like you had the real people kind of like share details. So I knew what it was about. But yeah, that movie. She's a sad girl. It's a sad girl. I mean, it's like a really unfortunate story, but it's also like a
Yeah.
very inspiring story because they, managed to
Yeah.
survive.
I you know, I feel
Yeah.
like I can do fucking everything. Oh, another one I'd recommend is Naiad, which is about Diana Naiad, who was a 60-year-old woman who tried to swim from Cuba to
Hmm.
Florida without stopping.
Yeah.
Talk about a story of overcoming the odds, all right? That movie was great and great acting. Fucking we love a LGBTQ movie. Loved that one too. So honestly, it was fantastic. Had a good season, but I'm kind of happy that it's over now. I was really 3 movies a day is a lot. A lot of content.
You're a real goal oriented girly. If
I
anything, you did it.
Well, I know. And then I was thinking about this. I was like, well, what do I do next? I think I'm going to try and read the top 50 banned books in this country.
Oh.
Because let me tell you, the ABCs of banned books, there's more banned books now than ever. Really sad. But most of the banned books are about Black history and LGBTQ. Like if there's anybody who's queer in the book, it's banned. So I felt like maybe if I read the
Interesting.
top 50 books of those, that would be an interesting like new thing to do.
Yeah.
So that's my next thing, I think.
Wow.
I
Okay,
know.
that's a
I
cool
feel like a
goal.
scholar.
Yeah. From critically acclaimed films, award worthy to
Yeah.
books, banned
To
books.
see, yeah, let's see what white Southern people don't want kids to read. Like, let's read them all. So that's what I think is next.
I love that.
All right. I'm excited for this episode.
Yes. This week we're doing things I wish I knew sooner. So
Let,
let's get it.
let's do it. Well, thanks for your concern. Oh my gosh, you guys. Things I wish I knew sooner. So I am turning 30 and I was at my grandma's funeral this weekend and I was telling people, they're like, how old are you now? And I'm like, I'm 29. I'm almost 30. And they were all shocked. And I was like, I know 30 sounds 29 even's a big old age, but I wish I had learned a lot of these things.
Yeah, I've also been feeling age like a little harder than usual lately. I came to the realization that when I used to be an 18-year-old fair little rave rat, I was a little bass head, a little headbanger. And then I was like, I saw girls TikTok and it was just about trance music. And I realized about how much trance music I listened to and how much time I spent in that stage at EDC Mexico. And the thing is, when I was 18, I looked at the trans stage and I saw old people, and like, that's it, right? And I was like, that could never be me. Like, that I could never like this music. And now here I am at 27
Yeah.
at the trans stage.
It's a pipeline, bro. It's
Yeah.
like, you know what I'm saying?
Mhm,
I still
mhm,
love bass music, but I've been listening to a lot more like drum and bass.
mhm.
A little, because sometimes you're like, the like is a little too jarring for like 6 a.m., but we love it.
Yeah, we're just taking life a little calmer now that
Yeah.
we've grown. There's a lot of things that obviously I wish I would have known when I was younger. I think some things you have to live through, experience, reflect, and learn to get it. But if I had like a second where someone could inject knowledge where I didn't have to like live through the experience, here are some of the things like I wish I would have known when I was younger. um Starting with life things, moving to New York, I really wish that when I was planning my move here, I would have looked into the taxes of this state because you do pay city, federal, and state tax. Plus, if you have benefits at your job, you're taking about a third of your paycheck away. Okay, that
At
is
least.
money at your pocket, at least. So, that is something I wish I would have known.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rough. Well, I think honestly, that's why a lot of people, in my opinion, why I think some people get into too much college debt is because they don't
Mm,
act, because they say a college will tell you, hey, you're gonna come out of college and you're gonna make 60K. The reality is you're gonna make like fucking 38K.
mhm.
Um even if you do make 60K, that like take home is not 60K. And
Yeah.
so then it's like when you think like, oh yeah, I can afford, I don't know, like a $500 um loan payment. Yeah, maybe you could on your on your whole amount, but take home you can't. So like, yeah, you have to really be careful about that. And like, I think this is kind of related, but when someone is giving you advice, like consider the perspective. I feel like I listen to like people that had really good intentions, right? Or but they just didn't have the right perspective for me to take their advice. And like I think the easiest easiest example of this is like if you have boomer parents, and I don't mean that in like a derogatory way, like literally my parents are boomers, they will give me advice where I'm like, babes, it's literally not 1975. Like that is Crazy Town, USA. You know, like
Yeah.
like we could just ignore that. But something that I didn't consider is like when I was in college, the people who are giving you advice, for instance, like your college counselor or your economics professor, they some of those people only have experience in academia, so them giving you like career advice might not be the best advice, because not because they have bad intentions, but just because they don't have like the experience or the perspective to like give the best advice. uh One thing that like, I mean, I think this is something that you probably will touch on, but like I was told like, hey, you need to be so involved, you need to do everything because just getting a degree is not enough. But I think what's better advice is do activities that make sense for where you want to go in life. You know what I'm saying? Like if you have a poli sci
Yeah.
degree, it makes sense for you to be on student government. If you want to be an engineer, it doesn't really make sense for you to like wear yourself down doing, I don't know, like something that's completely unrelated.
I agree. I think that with that, I one of my things is like a degree is not enough. Like you can go to college and get that degree and it does open doors. However, I think depending on the industry that you want to go into, you really have to think about networking, right? Which is like
Yeah.
kind of like a disadvantage that you have when you're like first generation and you don't have a lot of contacts. So in that way, I would reach out to literally like if you're on your path or you're thinking about going to college or you're getting whatever, think about like reaching out to people and get things moving. Like I'm sure maybe your professors don't like know specifically you want to ask them something, but they might know people who work in the industry. Or I know like my one of my most helpful professors was somebody who had like lived in New York, done that thing, was now like kind of raising their family there, and ultimately they were gonna head back out. You know what I mean? They were just like kind of teaching for a short term, and I think he had the most realistic like outlook on a lot of things, and I wish I would have utilized him more and built a deeper relationship with him, because he seemed like the only one that really had contacts out of whatever college town that you're in. I would say that. I would say also with like scholarships in school, but also out of school, there's grants. There's grants for all sorts of things and people that whatever you want to do, right? So there is money out there, but you do have to look for it, and there's opportunities. And something that my dad actually told me a lot about, that like now I look back at it and he's like, oh yeah, he was right. Lo- hate saying that. Is that you can find more like those money opportunities and scholarships, etc., if you are within a part of a community. It doesn't matter what community. You could be going to church. There's a lot of money. People in your church community got a lot of money. Okay, that is a one of the smartest, honestly, communities that you can get is your church community. Another one, it can be anything. Like if you start liking like bouldering, just getting like really involved in that community so you can like meet people through that if you don't have like let's say those contacts already built somewhere else, is just like super important to have that community kind of like background, because then other people will tell you about opportunities, and then they can see your character, they can see who you are, and they're more likely to give you those opportunities because they know you.
I agree.
Another kind of like big thing that I think I wish I would have known sooner, and it comes with like self identity and like imposter syndrome, is like I always like wanted to create art, and I always kind of felt like I had those artistic interests, but I was just like, well, I'm just like not an artist because I'm not like super good at one thing or whatever, right? I learn now later in life that when you're like living authentically and you're creating things because you like it, because you're trying to develop your own skills, you are literally like, that is what being an artist is. Like you're creating something from your expression, you're creating something, and you're developing your style. You're like, those are things that make you an artist. You don't need like merit to be an artist. Like it's the act of creating art that makes you an artist, not the recognition. And I think a lot of people, like at least I struggled with that, because it was like if I don't have anything that to show for it that people are going to perceive as wow, then am I really this?
I think I struggle with this too. And something that's helpful is like, you might not want to consider yourself an artist because like you have artists that you really like love and adore, but you don't know where they started, right? Like they could have started right where you are. There's obviously people who are like naturally really gifted people, but even those people really had to work and practice and put in a lot of effort to get where they're at. I mean, I think the best example for this for me is probably like Wes Anderson. I might have said this like forever ago, but he actually won best short film, which is also on Netflix. It's the story of Henry Sugar. But that production level and where that short is now versus his first short, you can like recognize the beginning of a style, but they're completely two different places. So it's like if you have like if you're looking at Picasso's work and you're like, oh my god, this is amazing, I could never do this. Well, where do you think Picasso, when he started out, was this good? No, he like repetitively painted every single day for like literally years and years and years to like get there. So I guess like don't judge your own like artistic ability on masters in the arts.
Period. So also I mean, like when I was coming out of college and looking for jobs and things like that, it was like really weird to call myself a designer, because I'm like, I haven't really made that much. Like there's not that much to show for my work. But I think like the more things that I have made, the more I have developed my own point of view, my own style. And now I'm like, oh, I can tell you exactly like who I am as like an artist, who I am in my aesthetic. But those things you can only build if you do, right? So don't let that lack of like kind of like title or recognition from other people stop you from actually making things. And the only way that people are going to see you as something is if you see yourself as that. So I think another thing is like taking yourself seriously. I think like when I was younger, I was like, I don't need to take things so seriously. But as I've gotten older, and I think like with my goals changing and just my lifestyle changing, I realized like in order for me to build something that I want, I need to take it seriously, and I need to take myself seriously, and I need to take everything in my life seriously, because at the end of the day, like everything in the outside factor affects, your growth as a person and how much time you can put onto certain things in your life. So if you have like big dreams and ambitions, maybe it's time for you to kind of like look at your lifestyle and say, what is it that I'm taking seriously and what isn't that I'm taking seriously? And I think it goes across everything. When you start taking something seriously, everything else becomes more serious.
I love that. Take yourself more seriously. Oof, that's a quote. That's going on Insta. I was also thinking about just like the creative process, and sometimes if you're not producing the product that you want to produce, you might like want to give up because you feel like you're not making progress. I think something that can be really helpful is like to try to do something one thing better or do achieve one thing. I think I do this a lot with editing the podcast and making videos. I'm like, okay, I want to do this. Let me figure out how to do it. Instead of being like, I want to do 100 things. I figure out one thing that I want to do differently or I want to improve on. And then over the course of 2 years, things I have a lot more skills stacked up on each other because I just tackled one thing at a time. And so you can do that with like all types of art. Like you're like, I want to get better at drawing eyes, drawing hands. It's like you do it in repetition until you move on to the next thing you want to get good at.
Yeah, and you'll always have that skill. Sometimes I forget I like to draw certain things, and then I'm like, ah, wow, I'm really good at that. Yeah, it's nice. And again, like you don't need to. I don't know. Sometimes I feel like people or other people. I've never thought this, but I know that other people they're like, well, if I'm not really like, it's not a goal to get to something, then like, why do it? And I'm like, that's
It's
loser
the journey,
mentality.
baby.
Yeah, that's loser mentality. Like you gain something from learning something new, from a new experience always, right? And if you are not giving yourself a chance to work for new things, then you're not gaining anything at all.
Also, let me just say, there's nothing bad with being a very well-rounded person, okay? I'm telling you, I'm discovering things that like I skills I have that I realize that not everyone has, okay? Fucking quick example. I kind of didn't realize that most people can't read music. I didn't know that that's like a
Oh.
skill I have until a boyfriend comes to church, he doesn't know how to fucking read a songbook and I'm like, bitch, what the fuck? And then I realized, oh wait, that's a skill I've developed over fucking 18 years of how to sight read music. You know, that's not something that's like intrinsically people understand. And then I'm like, well, wow, I feel really cultured right now. I feel really good about reading music. Why? Because I can.
That's true. And then you can also connect, like, honestly, knowing random facts and having like little knowledge on a bunch of things, you could connect with people about anything, even if
Yeah.
they're not, it's not something like you're super involved in or whatever. And like, you can, and I say with those interactions, to be just like as honest as you can. If you don't know a bunch, but you know one thing, be like, I know this one thing about it, and then like don't pretend that you know anything else because then it goes bad, right? So I think that's also part of the my I wish I knew sooner is to just live authentically. That like this has happened to me where I've like fake it till you make it, but then I realized like that's all, sometimes that's not the best case to fake it till you make it, because some people are looking for that authenticity in others, and it's there's nothing more embarrassing than to have somebody like quiz you on what something is and you don't know what that thing is. I think that was my first and only time I ever decided to fake it till I make it with like people, and I was just like, you know what, I think next time I'm just gonna say I don't know, so they can tell me what that is instead of I'm gonna pretend and then I'm gonna look it up later. Along with living authentically, I would say how people perceive you is not necessarily your responsibility, right? Like people will perceive you out of their own experiences, out of their or preferences. And I think a lot of people try to create like a personal brand without monetizing it. Now, I see a lot of people monetize their personal brands, and I think that's amazing. But if you're not making any money out of your personal brand, because, like, let's be real, not a lot of people are going to, it is exhausting to try to carry like a perception, somebody else's like perception of you, right? I see a lot of people living like above their means and how hard it is on them to kind of like keep up that persona. I mean it with love, but like unless you're monetizing it, like nobody cares. Like nobody cares that much
Yeah.
about you or your image other than you. So like I don't know. I think that if you spend more time really diving into your real interest and being honest with yourself about maybe your situation, you can change your situation. Cause like there's some people really like delulu to delula. Like they kind of put up this front about the lifestyle that they live, but I feel like they believe their front that they never change their habits to actually create that lifestyle. Like you pretending to be something is not sustainable, right? Unless you're
Mm.
actually like working towards that. And if you haven't changed any of your habits or changed yourself to better yourself when you're already holding yourself to like I am this person but you're not, then that's not good, Delulu.
I agree. I was gonna say like this is a little bit of a side from a personal brand, but like how people perceive you is not your responsibility. I would like add the caveat that make sure you're living within your values because then you're kind of like who you are is pretty steadfast. Like I feel like I kind of got lost in not giving a fuck what people thought about me, but I also was not making the best choices. And
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? I was like, I don't give a fuck, but I'm not making the best choices, right? And so that kind of did me wrong. But then when I really delved deep in, like, okay, who do I want to be in the world? And now I feel like I really don't care what people think about me, because deep down in the to my core, I know that I'm making choices that like align with who I want to be and what I want out of this life. And so, yeah, I would say like when you're doing that and you're living your best life, it's like the way you want to define it, how other people think about it is a lot less concerning. I think, especially over this year, I was like really concerned about, I'm not gonna say my parents' perception, but just I was really worried about like my family and what they thought about me, or are they gonna giving anxiety about if they think I'm making a mistake or whatnot. And now that I'm like living my best life to the fullest, I really don't give a fuck. Who cares? I'm living my best life. I'm happy with who I am, regardless of like things I'm working on, my faults, which is fine. Everyone has things that they
Yeah.
need to work on. But yeah, don't give a fuck about what people think about you, because most people don't think about you. That's
Yeah.
actually the crazy part, is that you're keeping up, and this is to what you're saying, but like if you're keeping up perceptions, there's not that many people perceiving you, quite frankly.
No. That's why I said, like, no offense, nobody cares. Like,
And
nobody
honestly,
cares.
but there's something, I think there's something beautiful in realizing that you can, like, there's something very freeing about realizing that nobody gives a fuck. Like, you can be your own person. Who cares, like, how you're expressing yourself? Because maybe they'll think about you in passing, They'll think about you like, oh, wow, that's an out there outfit, but then that's gone. They don't focus on it all day, every day.
Yeah, and it's a lot of work to live for others and not for
Mm-hmm.
yourself. Doesn't if it goes against the aesthetic, whatever. If you like it, wear it. If you enjoy it, do it. It's okay. People might talk about it for 10.5 seconds, and then everybody else has other stuff going on. You know what I mean? Like, you're not top priority, unfortunately. It just is what it is.
Exactly. I would say something I wish I knew sooner was get a therapist before you need
Mm,
one.
mm.
I didn't start going to therapy till I was like on the fucking edge, babes. It was a deep, dark time. And I wish I had realized that, like, I think people think that you need to be in crisis to go seek therapy, but that's really not true. And I probably could have avoided a crisis if I had sought, thought, sought therapy sooner. I know it's not acceptable. I know it's not accessible to everyone, but I'd fucking know firsthand that it's accessible to some people and they don't utilize it. So, everything with a grain of salt. But that, and then I also would say with therapy, like, don't give up on a therapist too early. Therapists try to ease into being your therapist. They're not going to hit you with like hard truths before they know you. So I feel like
That's
me and
true.
my therapist are starting to dig deep, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's right, because it's like they were getting to know me. They didn't actually know me well enough to like speak on like, hey, this is something you might consider, or this is a pattern.
That is very true. And I think that's with everybody in general.
Yeah.
Sometimes you gotta let people give people time to really settle in. It takes a while. I guess this kind of like helps me shift into like our what I hope I knew about people, love, relationships, etc. Good things take time and patience. It's like the same thing with anything, and sometimes it may not make total sense at first, but racking your brain around it might not always be what is like. I heard something recently and it said, proceed without clarity. And I don't think I've ever done that in my life. And I was
Whoa.
like, wow. Okay. And sometimes that's what you gotta do, right? Like, a situation isn't super clear. Instead of digging for answers, you just kind of have to move forward. And whatever that means for you and whatever it's best for you. If you're not getting specific answers you need from somebody, it's better for you to assume it's a no than it's a no, you know? I've never made peace
Mm.
with that. So that's something I'm like, maybe we don't need to be super clear and tell exactly how we're feeling and all of our feelings. Maybe we should just move forward and see if that person ends up reaching out, reacting on their own account. Because people, for the most part, can know when you're upset. People, for the most part, know when your behavior changes, right? So maybe proceeding without clarity is for the best. Allow other people to take accountability, take interest in seeing you happy and being in your life. So that's a new one for me.
With love and relationships and friendships, I feel like the one thing is just like, not it is what it is, but honestly, it kind of is what it is. You know, like I if some dude only hits you up at 3 a.m., it is what it is, babes. Like that's when he you know what I'm saying? Like it's not this like crazy head game that people are playing where it's like he's trying to, I don't know what that game would be, you know, but it's like no, that's a situationship, that's a hookup, you know, that is what it is. If a guy, you have 3 great dates and he ghosts you, it is what it is. You know, it could be a lot of things, but I think that's the proceed without clarity. It's like, you know, it sucks that you got ghosted, but I mean, don't try to figure, like, you're never going to figure it out unless you confront them. And if you confront them and they don't text you back, I mean, it is what it is. He ghosted you. You know, he did not get abducted by aliens and left his cell phone on Earth. Okay, like,
Yeah, I think proceed with that clarity from others. But I also think that the things I do sooner was that there is no better way to expedite the process of knowing if somebody is for you than you setting your boundaries and your standards at the beginning. I mean it.
yeah,
Like, I mean it. People tell you all the time, you're going to come on too strong. They're going to get scared. Well, I'm sorry, then they're a pussy ass bitch. Like, and you don't want that. You know what I mean? And then you can know that that person is not ready. You don't have to ease anybody into a relationship. Like, please don't do that. Don't do that. Mostly if you know what you want, okay? If you're trying to figure out, does this person like me? Tell them what you want. Believe me, people are either silent, you will get either nothing, where you're gonna have to repeat it until you get an answer, or they're gonna let you know that they're not there, or they're gonna let you know that they're with it, with the shits. That they're not scared. They're okay. You know, put me in, coach.
I mean, that's something else. It's like evaluate what you're looking for if you're ready for a relationship before you start dating, and then be clear with the person up front. I think a mistake I've made is thinking that I'm ready for a long-term relationship, or like I'm ready. And it's like, no, you're like a sophomore in college and you don't want to be tied. Like, bitch, what the fuck? Why are you looking for a relationship in these frat dudes? Like, that's not even what you want. Do you want to date a frat guy? And it's like, no, that seems horrible. Why would I want to do that? Okay, well, then what are you doing here? You know, and also on the other side of the coin of that is if you know you're not ready for a relationship, don't hit up a girl where her Tinder profile says looking for something serious, looking for baby daddy, looking for marriage. Don't go out with that girl if you know for a fact that you are looking for a hookup, right? And then on the other side of the coin, if you're ready for marriage, don't let someone make you a hookup buddy, because you do that by not establishing boundaries and being like, "Hey, I'm not down for this shit," and then enforcing them. The boundary can be there, but unless you enforce it, it's not really a boundary.
Yeah, that is very, very true. And then we talked about this one last year, but let allow people to grow without you in your absence. Okay, like
Yeah.
sometimes you're just not meant to be in that chapter of their lives, and there really is no better way of that tells you that than if your communication is not communicating. All right, two people got to put a lot of effort in communicating with each other. Specifically, I think when you like each other, when you're trying to understand each other, for things to just like, mostly when you're meeting somebody new. So if the communication is not communicating, I think that's just a sign that you should just back up a little and like let them figure it out. Let
Yeah.
them grow, let them have experiences without you, you know? If it's meant to be, it's gonna come back. It's gonna work better. Maybe next time you'll both be in a place, or you will have outgrown that person or moved on.
Yeah, things I wish I would with That's a tongue twister. Things I wish I knew sooner, specifically about relationships, is that struggle relationships are overrated. Okay, like, oh, it's so overrated. It's
Yeah.
this is not a rom com where we're fighting for love. We're in a love triangle, hoping they'll pick us. We're struggling with someone who's struggling with demons. I'm not about it. Okay, it's over fucking rated. A calm, peaceful relationship might seem boring if you're used to chaos, but a peaceful relationship is like the best thing you can have because I mean, I don't know about you, but I really don't have time for like relationship drama.
I think a lot of like they're fighting their demons is you trying to figure out who you are after an experience, right? And you should let people do that. That's self work. you
Yeah.
don't need to you don't need to guide them through that. You actually don't need to be there at all because that
Ex-
is answers they need to find within themselves.
yeah, like a
Um,
project, no, a DIY is a project. A young man not knowing his way in the world, that's not your project, okay? Find a better project that fulfills you up, okay? A project of being another person being a project, that doesn't fulfill you, babes. You're filling up somebody else. Find a project in your home, in your own body.
yeah, they can either level up, they can go and walk beside you, or they can be a friend from afar. I truly do believe that, and I think with friendships, one of the biggest things that I have learned that it has been kind of like a shy learn. Um, the people that you surround yourself with, that is who you are. So if the people that you're surrounding yourself, you're like, well, yeah, they're my friends, but I'm not really like them. You're exactly like those people. You're exactly those people, and you have to be very cautious about the environments that you're putting yourself in because sometimes you start hanging out in certain vibes in certain environments and you become like that because you're exposed to that. Like if you want a really healthy lifestyle, then hang out with really healthy people that wake up at 6 in the morning and like do that vibe. If like that's the vibe that you want, start putting yourself in that place. They will encourage you to do something. They will already have those habits in themselves that will encourage you to be that way. But if you are, I guess, downtrending where you're like living as lifestyle and then you start going into places where you know that may not be like good for you, unfortunately, regardless of how strong of a human being you are, you start radiating the same energy as those people. You start talking like people like that, and you start doing the things that they're doing. So if you're in an environment where you don't think specifically like translates to who you are as a person, you really have to check yourself and be like, how much time am I spending around these people? Because most likely, like, you're just like that.
Hard truth. I
Yeah.
agree. And I think that's probably like the toughest part about like growing as a person is like I think you inevitably kind of lose people just when you are making like a lot of changes and I think that's a very hard transition and it makes you kind of second guess. I think it makes you second guess yourself like, "Oh, okay, well, am I doing the wrong thing because I don't have the same people I had around me like 6 months ago?" And it's like, actually it's probably a sign that you're doing the right thing is if your group, your energy is changing around you because that means that you're changing your life, right? You're not just changing up here in your brain, you're changing your environment.
And sometimes you really have to physically remove yourself, you know? A girl, sometimes you gotta move across the country and say, see you at Christmas, if that.
If that, babes.
Along with love relationships, whatever. It's not your responsibility not to get treated poorly by other people. I think that we all have accountabilities to like be the best person that we can be a good friend. But like you doing extra things and kind of like trying to maintain a vibe that maybe isn't there. First of all, that's exhausting, okay? And this goes along with I think relationships a little bit where like if you're really controlling, right, and you're like checking people's phone and you're like keeping them on so they don't cheat on you, just let them. They're gonna do what they want to do. Like people are gonna do what they want to do. At one point, you're gonna slip up on your maintenance care of your boyfriend or of your friends, or and this comes a lot with like also people pleasing. Like if you're out here, maybe buying rounds of shots for people to like you and things like that. Those are like really hard things to maintain, right? And I think like you can really see the truth and value in your relationships and the people around you if what you give them is just exactly who you are. And the people that are going to value you, they're going to see that, they're going to take you, and they're going to hold on to you. And the people that can't value that are going to show you that they don't value that.
This is a really tough lesson to learn, that like there's nothing that you can do to avoid being cheated on, being lied to. Like, it's really not about you. And I think, I see these things where it's like, oh my God, so and so get cheated on, and they're like are saying like some gorgeous girl in Hollywood got cheated on. And I think people are like missing the point and thinking that like you can look a certain way or like date the right person in some way, but it's like, honestly, you can't really control the actions of others. I wish I would have known that sooner, that like there's nothing you can say or do that will get people to treat you a certain way or get people to do a certain thing. That's why if you want a friend or a partner to change, it's nearly impossible, because there's nothing you can do to change that person. It is all them. You can support them and make it a little bit easier for them to change, but they're going to have to do that themselves. Just like there's nothing you can do to get avoided getting cheated on. Like, that's all them. I guess my last thing, I guess this is my last thing. It was my grandma's funeral on Saturday, and I was just thinking about this thing she told me a lot, and now it feels more relevant. She always said to do the right thing, don't follow the wrong folks, and be your own person. I actually really like that story about, have you heard about, I think they're like, I can't think of what the name are called, but lemons, they're like little ferrets, lemons, and they like will follow each other off a cliff because they just follow each other. Mm-hmm. And she always liked that story. She was like, don't be like an animal that just follows somebody off a cliff. Be your own person.
Strong sense of self.
Yeah.
It's hard. Your grandma lived a long time. She was with the shits. She knew what was up. She's seen it all.
And honestly, holding people around you accountable can be really difficult. But if you feel like you can't hold people around you accountable, then maybe like those are not the right people to be around. Like, if you can't hold your best friend accountable for bad actions or your partner accountable for bad actions, then like what are we doing? You got to be able to be like, you know what? That was not cool. I didn't think that was like you.
That's a good one. That is a good one. I don't know if I have any lasting thoughts, but I think maybe one of the things that I wish I knew sooner is that you can choose to not be sad at any point in your life. I think up until college, I was like perpetually like a depressed, sad person. And then sometime, maybe it was during the pandemic, I decided I didn't want to be sad anymore. I was like, I have lived through my entire life almost romanticizing this feeling of sadness because it's kind of all I felt for a really long time and it's all I know. But you can literally choose to not do that and change your life if that is what you want, right? And it's by literally changing your surroundings, changing your habits, changing your outlook, everything. So I wish I knew that sooner because I think I spent a lot of time being sad when I was creating my own sadness. So that is it for me.
All right, baby. I think that's like 45 minutes worth of wisdom. We love that for us.
For us.
Happy we got to share that. No, I'm very thankful for everyone listening this week. For things I wish I knew sooner. I feel like we could have had like a part 2, 3, 4 to this because I feel like I've learned a lot, but I forgot. Sometimes you forget lessons that you've learned along the way and they just feel a part of you, But happy we did this. If you're listening to this, make sure that you're subscribed, that you rate and review, and recommend it to a friend. That really helps us out a lot. You can find us on social media at thanks for your concern. And I'm Ella L. Tudor.
And I'm at Berenice Diaz.
We'll see you next week.
Bye. Bye.